A very big hello to all my wonderful PU2 as well as KCET champions. I welcome you all to the rapid revision video of the chapter Ecosystem. So since this video is going to be short, I'll try to make my energy level go up really high, and I want you guys also to stay with that energy itself, same level, okay? But you can do one thing extra, and that is show lots of love, yeah? So do that, and my dear children, listen to me carefully. Now for the next 20 minutes, it will be just you and me. So that's all. Yeah, do not make notes. We'll do after the video. Yes. So let's begin. Starting with the first thing that we have is, what is ecosystem? What is ecosystem, dear children? Interaction between two things. What are two things? The biotic factors, as in the living factors, you, me, animals, and all the things out there. And also, the second factor is what? The abiotic factors, which is the non-living things such as sand, water, all these things. So interaction between the biotic and abiotic factors out there forms what? The little cute thing that is known as ecosystem. Okay, ma'am. Now, what is important apart from this? Other thing that is important apart from this is the term which is stratification. What do you mean by stratification? It is the vertical distribution of species. For example, if at all you go to a forest, if you look up, what do you find? Oh, very big trees, right? And then if you look down, there are shrubs, okay? And then if you look so down, you will be finding what? Herbs as well as grasses. So the distribution of these species, vertical distribution of these species, is known as stratification. Trees occupy the top layer, shrubs occupy the second layer, herbs and grasses occupy the bottom layer out there. Okay, ma'am, is this only the important thing in this slide? This and this? No. One more important thing is there, and this is PU2 board's very famous question, that is, what are the functional units of ecosystem, or what makes the ecosystem function? What are the things which keeps it going? First thing, productivity. For example, an organism which is there, it has to produce something for the next organism which is there. Or otherwise, how do you think ecosystem is going to be maintained? There is no other way, right? So productivity is the first functional unit that we have. Second thing, decomposition. For example, we die and we are just like that. Do you think we are contributing anything back to the nature out there? No. Basically, decomposition should be happening, and all the things which are very important things which are present in our body should be going back into the soil. Now again, some other organisms will be coming out of it, and the same process is going to be going ahead. Plants also die, they will also decompose, you know. So decomposition is really important because you want to replenish the things that has been utilized up. Now next thing, energy flow. So can I say, whatever thing I have, I'm not going to give it to anyone else. For example, a plant. Suppose a plant which is there, which is undergoing photosynthesis to prepare its own food, now says that I am not going to give any energy to the next organism that is there. Do you think that works? No, Baba. The energy has to be transferred and it has to go on. That is energy flow. So this is also the functional unit of an ecosystem. Without all of this thing, nothing is going to happen. Similarly, nutrient cycling. The carbon which is there, the sulfur which is there, all these important nutrients which are there, they also have to be cycled. Then only an ecosystem is going to function. So what are the functional unit of ecosystem? Productivity, decomposition, energy flow, and nutrient cycling. And you know what? You guys are lucky because you do not have to study nutrient cycling. Rest all of it, obviously you have to study, and we will study together. Okay, so nutrient cycling is not there for you now. Initially carbon cycle and everything was there. If at all you have the old NCERT, please make sure you shift it aside and have the new NCERT in that it's not there. Okay, fine. Let's go ahead with the first thing, that is productivity, the first functional unit. What do you mean by productivity? We'll come to that. Okay, we will come to that. So, solar energy is essential for ecosystem function and sustainability. Do you agree? Solar energy, sun's energy is important? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Primary production, biomass, organic matter produced per unit area over time by plants during photosynthesis. What, ma'am? So, to not make it very complicated, I'll tell you directly the funda. That is, suppose there is a plant over here. This plant is undergoing the process of photosynthesis. Okay, by photosynthesis I mean that it is making its own food. It is making its own food, right? And this food can be utilized by other organisms also. Okay, because we are like that. So what do you call the production of this food? What do you call it? It is the first organism to produce it. So I'll call this as primary production. Primary production. It got the help of the sun's rays, and that is why it was able to produce. So this is known as primary production. It is what? The biomass or the organic matter produced per unit area over time by the plant during photosynthesis. It can be expressed in two ways, either in weight. If it is expressed in weight, you have to mention gram per meter square. If in energy, then you have to mention kilocalories per meter square. So there are two ways or two units to tell it, to explain primary production. It is either weight or energy. If weight, it is gram per meter square. If energy, it is kilocalorie per meter square. Done? Now, if at all you are asked, what is the rate of primary production? Okay, what is the rate of this production? How do you explain that? You will now call this as productivity. You will not call it production. You will now call this as productivity. And when you talk about productivity, you have to mention the time also. So until now, we were not mentioning any time. Gram per meter square, kilocalorie per meter square. That is the only thing. We were just mentioning about the matter that is produced per unit area. But now we have to talk about the time also. So rate of biomass production or productivity, what you say, is going to be in terms of time as well. So G m minus 2 raised to the power minus 2 year raised to the power minus 2. Okay, calorie meter raised to the power minus 2 and also year minus 1. So this is how you are going to represent it. The rate you have to add up the year term also. If at all now you're not adding the year, it is going to be wrong. Okay, now productivity basically can be of two different types. One is gross primary productivity. What do you mean by that? Gross primary productivity basically means, suppose over here I have multiple plants, okay, and they are basically producing the organic matter, and I am talking about not the production, I am talking about the rate of their production. So basically I am talking about the productivity right over here. So the total productivity of all the organisms out there, of all the plants out there together, I will call this as gross primary productivity. What do I call it? Gross primary productivity. That is the total organic matter produced by plants during photosynthesis. Done? Yes. Now do you think everything which is there in the plant will be transferred to the next organism which eats it up? For example, a rabbit comes and eats it up. Do you think everything is going to be passed on? No. Some things are going to be utilized by itself also. Yeah. Some amount of matter, some amount of energy is going to be utilized by the plant itself for its own metabolic activities, right? Then only it is going to help others. So basically, if I talk about the rabbit which is there, which is going to eat the plants, how much will it get? How much productivity will it get? So that is net primary productivity, the available biomass for the heterotrophs, that is the other organism that is going to eat the autotrophs. And how do you say that? Basically you said that GPP, gross primary productivity, is the total productivity that you had. Now you are saying that you are going to minus some things for your own use, right? What do you call that as? You call this as respiratory losses. You call this as R. R stands for respiratory losses. Now whatever is left behind is known as NPP, net primary productivity. This is the only thing that can be passed or is available for the next group of organism, that is what? A heterotroph out there. I hope you got it. So what is the formula for this? NPP is equals to GPP minus R, that is gross primary productivity, minus R. R is what? Respiratory losses. So it's not just the loss for respiration, it's the loss for each and everything that the plant utilizes this energy for. It can be for reproduction, it can be for any other activity out there. Got it? Okay, ma'am. So basically, rate of biomass production is known as productivity, and ma'am, you said if it is run by the plants, you call it as primary productivity. And in primary productivity, that's not all. You have other type of productivity also. Gross primary productivity basically means the total, right? Total organic matter which is being produced by multiple plants in a specific area at a particular time, right? Yes. Now I am saying that you cannot give everything to the next group of organisms out there. Basically, only some of it is going to be transferred. What is that sum? It is this NPP, net primary productivity. Ma'am, where did the other things go? It went in the respiratory losses. So GPP minus R is equals to NPP. Okay, so this was primary productivity when plants were producing it. Now what if I'm talking about rabbit? Okay, rabbit, it eats the food and basically have its own organic matter out there. The rate of formation of this new organic matter by rabbit will be known as what? Any idea? Any idea? So if at all I see plants are there and plants are eaten up by rabbit, and rabbit suppose is eaten up by the tiger. This was the producer This is the primary consumer that you have. This is going to be the secondary consumer that you have. For the first time, the thing that produced what plants, so which is why I'll call this as primary producer. I'll call this as primary producer. Now what about them? Rabbits are going to be secondary producer. This is going to be tertiary producer, right? So this is going to be secondary producer. And what do I call the productivity? The rate of biomass production by rabbit. What do I call it? Secondary productivity. Okay, rate of formation of new organic matter by the consumer out there will be known as secondary productivity. Okay, not secondary primary productivity, secondary productivity. I hope that's clear. So whatever is important has been mentioned over here. This is what was super important for you to remember. Now we go ahead. Factors affecting the primary productivity. Obviously, primary productivity means productivity by the plant. So there are some factors which are affecting the primary productivity. Again, this year we saw some questions like this. So it is affected by the plant species in an area. If at all there are not too much, obviously they are not going to do photosynthesis. Environmental factors such as temperature, water and sunlight, that is also going to affect. If at all not proper, water is not there, my region photosynthesis is not going to happen properly. Availability of nutrients, that is going to hamper. And photosynthetic capacity of the plants. Plants are there but they do not have much photosynthetic capacity, then that is also a problem. So basically factors affecting primary productivity is basically factors affecting photosynthesis. You can remember like that. Okay, plant species in an area, environmental condition, availability of nutrients and the capacity, photosynthetic capacity of the plants. Now this is one very important thing which was asked as MCQ before. What is the total annual NPP of biosphere? Annual, okay, annual 1 year's NPP, net primary productivity of the biosphere. It is 170 billion tons. It is not million, it is billion. 170 billion tons. And you know what? Oceans cover 70% of the earth but contribute only 55 billion tons. Out of this 170 billion tons, only 55 billion tons is contributed by the oceans. Even though they cover what? 70%, that is majority of our surface. So 70% is covered by ocean, but still only 55 billion tons are being contributed. That means more productivity is there on the land. More productivity is going to be there on the land. So 170 billion is what? The total net primary productivity, as an usable thing that is there. Okay, and out of that 55 billion is for the oceans. Done. Now there is an important term given, and that is standing crop. If at all you come across this, what do you mean by that? The total mass of living organisms or number of organisms in a unit area at a given time. What is it? The total mass of a living organism or number of organisms in a unit area at a given time. Whatever total mass is there of these organisms who are staying in this area at a given time. So biomass is measured in fresh weight or dry weight. Fresh weight means including water will be there, or dry weight without water. Dry weight is more accurate as water content is going to vary. So basically dry weight is considered better. Okay, so standing crop is what? The total mass of living organism staying in a unit area at a different time. That's all. Done. This is standing crop. Fine. Done. Okay. So the productivity term ends up right over here, and we are going ahead with the next thing, that is next functional unit, which is decomposition. And everyone who have understood whatever was important, definitely subscribe to the channel right now. Okay. Now, what exactly is decomposition? Breakdown of the complex organic matter into inorganic substances. Okay, now for here, I have to explain you with the help of a board. So listen to me carefully. So this is suppose the organic matter that we have. And you have to break it down into the inorganic matter out there. Inorganic matter are always simple, and organic matter that you see are always complex. So basically, first of all, you are going to need the help of detritivores. You will need the help of what? Detritivores, as in organisms which are going to break down larger fragments into smaller fragments. You're talking about the physical breakdown. You're not talking about chemical bonding breakdown. Physical breakdown of larger fragments into smaller fragments. Who does that? Detritivores. What is the most common example for detritivores that you have? You have earthworm as an example. Earthworm. And what do you call this process as? This is the first step, and that is known as fragmentation. fragmentation. What do you call this process as? Fragmentation. So by the end of fragmentation, this big thing which was there is now small thing out there. Okay, that is fragmentation. That is done by detritivores. Decomposers are different, detritivores are different. Okay, so now you have got detritivores, they broke it down. Some amount of nutrients would be there over here while they break down, which can easily seep into the soil, which can easily go into the soil out there. This process which is there, it is the second thing that is known as leaching. What do you call it? Leaching. So water soluble nutrients out there. Okay, the water soluble nutrients out there which can seep into the soil, they go into the soil, and this process is known as what? Leaching. Done ma'am. Okay, now what? So now still it is organic matter only. We have to still convert into inorganic nutrients. So from here onwards, the actual decomposition starts, but you count from here. But you can't actually count from here. Fragmentation, then leaching. Then what? The third process that comes up is known as catabolism. Catabolism. And from this point onwards, you would need the help of decomposers. What are decomposers, my dear children? Fungus as well as bacteria, they act as decomposers. FB, Facebook, I can remember like that, right? Now over here, the decomposition process starts off. Okay, it starts off. But if you see halfway through, you get something, you get a substance being formed, and that is known as humus. And that is known as humus. It is basically partially decomposed organic matter. It is not completely decomposed. It is what partial decomposition has taken place at this particular point. And you will call this process as what? Humification. So catabolism means breakdown of organic matter into inorganic matter, which is the third step according to your NCERT. And actually, in this particular step only, it is divided into things. One is humification and the second one is mineralization. So you consider it to be two separate points according to your NCERT. So catabolism means breakdown of this and this. And basically, when you form the humus, this process is known as humification. So this becomes what? The fourth step. Humification. Humus is what? It is partially digested material which is very much nutritious. It has too much amount of nutrition. It is dark in color. It is dark amorphous substance which is there, and basically it is partially digested. So basically it breaks down and gives nutrients to the soil. It is really good source of nutrient out there. Finally, the breakdown happens to inorganic nutrients, and that is known as mineralization. And that is going to be known as mineralization. So first you had fragmentation, then you had leaching, then you had catabolism, and actually catabolism can be broken down to two things: humification and then mineralization. Humification means formation of humus, which is dark amorphous substance which is having high amount of nutrients, and mineralization basically means breakdown of this particular humus into actual inorganic nutrients which mixes up into the soil. Then this is the steps of decomposition, and it's a very important thing. Here you had detritivores, here you had decomposers. Done. If at all you want to take a screenshot, you can. So over here I come, fragmentation, detritivores break detritus. What is detritus? The dead and decaying matter is known as detritus. That is going to be broken down. Detritivores break down detritus into smaller particles, example earthworms. Leaching, water soluble inorganic nutrients seep into the soil and precipitate as unavailable salts. So while we broke this down, some inorganic nutrients will be there which are water soluble, they get into the soil. But rest are still organic only, they have to be broken down. Catabolism, microbial enzymes break down detritus into simpler inorganic substances. Okay, microbial enzymes are going to break it down into simpler inorganic substances. And humification means what? Formation of humus, dark amorphous nutrient rich slow decomposing substance. So I told you, it's very slow decomposing, it's dark and amorphous, and that's all. Mineralization means microbes degrade the humus, releasing inorganic nutrients back into the soil. That's all. So yes, it started off like this. I hope this is clear. Now, there are some factors that affects decomposition. First one, it's an oxygen dependent process. So if at all oxygen is not there, it is not going to happen smoothly. It is an oxygen dependent process. Always remember it. Detritus composition. Suppose the dead and decaying matter which is there, it is rich in lignin and chitin. Lignin and chitin, LC. you know, both of them are very tough substances. We cannot break it down very easily, which is why decomposition is going to be slow. On the other hand, if the same component is rich in nitrogen and sugars, in that particular case, it will be faster decomposition. So it is an oxygen dependent process, and the decomposition will be slow if it is rich in lignin and chitin. It will be fast if it is rich in what? Nitrogen as well as sugars. Now, climatic factors also vary. If at all it is warm and moist, it will be faster decomposition because fungus and bacteria can easily grow on that. But if there is low temperature and anaerobic conditions, slower decomposition leading to organic material build-up will be seen. So you can remember, if at all you put things in the, bread, when it kept outside, it gets decayed, but when it is kept at low temperature in your refrigerators, it does not, right? So low temperature does not favor it, and also anaerobic condition, if at all there is no oxygen, it is also not going to favor it. I hope that is clear. Done. Okay, so factors affecting decomposition: you need oxygen. If at all these things are rich in nitrogen and sugars, NS, it will be really good, and warm and moist conditions should also be there. Opposite of any of these things is not going to work for decomposers. Works? Yes. And now everyone who is preparing for KCET examination, my dear children, check out our ABHYAS KCET test series. It is wonderful. It has brought multiple ranks the previous year, 171 out of 3 lakh children, 443 and 693, and the list goes on. So there are 35 mock tests. There is chapter-wise KCET PYQs also, all of it under correct 60-minute, 60-timer condition. So it will be definitely helping you out, and the pricing for this is rupees 1499. If at all you're interested, do check it out in the link given below in the description. Okay, now we come to the energy flow. Energy flow, that is also super important. Now listen to me very carefully. Okay, so I'll go directly with the important things which are there. Yeah, so suppose this is sun. Sun produces so many different types of radiation, right? In that, one type of radiation is photosynthetically active radiation. You call it as SPAR, photosynthetically active radiation. And you know how much percentage this is occupy? It occupies almost 50% of the total solar radiation. Now there are plants, and you know what about plants? Plants are going to not utilize all of this 50%. They will be just utilizing only 2 to 10% of the PAR. So PAR as in photosynthetically active radiation is for photosynthesis, but plants do not utilize whole 50%. Only 2 to 10% is taken up by the plants. Only 2 to 10% is taken up by the plants. Always remember it. And now, the plants which are there, they are going to be eaten up by animals, and animals are going to take up the energy. But what law falls here? There is a law, and that law you should be knowing. It is 10% law, according to which it states that basically if an organism which is there, such as a plant, and plant is eaten up by a rabbit, as I said, and rabbit is eaten up by tiger. So if plant had 10,000 kilojoules of energy, my dear children, it is not going to give the entire 10,000 kilojoules of energy to the next organism. No, it is going to utilize some for itself, and then it is going to transfer. And while it transfers, you know what? It is not going to be a 100% efficient process. Some amount of energy is going to be lost there also. So I'll say only 10% of the energy actually goes to the next organism. 10% of 10,000 means what? You do into 10 divided by 100. What is your answer for this particular question? Make 1 0 less, it will be what? 1000 kilojoules. Now this organism, again, only 100 kilojoules. So this is what the 10% law that is going to be followed. Energy transfer is not 100% efficient, and basically there will be some losses because organism utilize some for itself, and some because it is lost in the nature. So 10% law is being followed up over here. This thing that you see over here is known as an energy pyramid. An energy pyramid always looks like this. It is always upright. You call this as upright. It cannot be inverted. For example, plants cannot have the least amount of energy than the rabbits. No, plants take up the energy from the sun directly, right? So they will definitely have the highest, and then it will go low. So it will be an upright thing that you get. Okay, let's come back to the story. So we were right over here. So sun is the primary source of energy. We know that Okay, and less than 50% of solar energy is what PAR, photosynthetically active radiation. Plants capture only 2 to 10%. We know that energy flows in unidirectional way, that is only in one direction. As I told you, plants, then primary consumer, then secondary consumer, right? Now there are some laws governing the energy flow. First law of thermodynamics: energy is neither created nor destroyed, only transformed. So the energy which is going to be coming, it is not going to be destroyed, or it cannot be created more. Whatever amount of energy is there, that is only going to be passed on, right? Yes. And this passing, okay, second law of thermodynamics says that energy is constantly required to counteract disorder therapy. Basically it says that no energy transfer is 100% efficient. So when I'm saying it is not created, not destroyed, it is just transformed, I try to mean that it is not going to be 100% efficient. Some amount of energy is going to be lost according to the second law of thermodynamics. Okay, now this is just for your information, just for your understanding. Okay, coming back to it. When you talk about ecosystem that is there are different type of ecosystem. One is terrestrial ecosystem and the other one is aquatic ecosystem. Terrestrial ecosystem means basically land ecosystem. In that, the plants which are there, the herbaceous and the woody plants which are there, they are going to be acting like producers. But what about aquatic ecosystem? Do you have big trees inside the water? No, Baba. They're usually the aquatic ecosystem is dominated by a producer whose name is what? Phytoplankton. Whose name is phytoplankton. So these phytoplanktons are small units which are going to do the process of photosynthesis, and they are eaten up by small organisms which are known as zooplanktons. And zooplanktons on the other hand are eaten up by small fishes, and small fishes are eaten up by large fishes. So in aquatic ecosystem, it can be phytoplankton that can be on the producer level, or it can be algae that can be on producer level, or there are certain plants also which can be in the producer level. But always know there are chances that apart from plants you have these two things, phytoplankton and algae. Phytoplanktons are eaten up by what? Zooplankton. Zooplankton are eaten up by small fishes. Okay. So consumers. So those were the producers, right? What are the consumers? You have primary consumer, secondary consumer and tertiary consumer, about which we already discussed it. Or do we want to discuss it? So primary consumer as in the herbivores. For example, when I talk about the plants right over here, the plants which are there, they are going to be eaten up by a rabbit. That is going to be a herbivore. Sometimes it can be an omnivore also. For example, human beings can also have plants, right? That can also be possible. So herbivore or omnivore, generally herbivores are the one. Okay, this is what the primary consumer, the first consumer that you have. Now what? Secondary consumer. Secondary consumer, for example, tiger, it always have to be a carnivore or an omnivore. Carnivore because it has to eat another organism, not plants. So that is why we call it carnivore. Omnivore, why? Because omnivore can eat both plants and animals. So they can be carnivore or an omnivore. What about tertiary consumers? Similarly, carnivores feeding on the secondary consumers. So for example, I talk about vulture. Vulture eats up the tiger out there, right? So this is going to be what? The tertiary consumer which is there. Works? Yes, ma'am. Okay, fine. Now, over here, there are few things mentioned. That is, types of food chain. Grazing food chain and detritus food chain is there. Grazing food chain basically means it starts with the producer, that is plants. Here the producers are going to be what? Plants. The plants are going to be eaten up by herbivores, herbivores by carnivores. This is how it goes. And you know what? Grazing food chain is the one which is dominant in aquatic ecosystem. This is super important question. It is the dominant one in aquatic ecosystem. What about detritus food chain? Detritus food chain basically means it starts from dead organic matter. So decomposers act on the dead organic matter and basically provide nutrient to the soil, and from there it goes on. That is known as detritus food chain. Begins with the dead organic matter, that is detritus. Decomposers and fungi and bacteria are going to act on it. So this is the major pathway in terrestrial ecosystem. We usually think grazing is the major pathway in terrestrial. It is not. Detritus is the major pathway in terrestrial ecosystem. Now you might think that why detritus is not the major pathway in aquatic ecosystem? Because I told you, decomposers, they need what? Warm and moist environment. Inside the water, if you go deep into the water, it will be too cold, my dear children. Decomposers cannot survive up there. So basically, the decomposition process itself will be very, very slow up there. That is why I say detritus food chain is going to dominate in terrestrial areas. In grazing food chain is going to dominate in what? Aquatic ecosystem. The 10% law, we have already studied it. Now, limitation in grazing and detritus food chain. Grazing food chain has limited trophic levels due to energy loss at each levels. Why do you have limited trophic levels? Because after that, you do not have energy to transfer. At one point, it will be 1 kilojoule. What are you going to transfer to the next organism, right? Detritus food chain is less restricted as decomposers recycle nutrients, making energy available again for producers. That is not something that is super important. At least these things, please know that is important. Okay, what is dominant in what? Okay, now, last portion, that is ecological pyramids. We have 3 ecological pyramids. One is pyramid of number, pyramid of biomass, and third one is pyramid of energy. We have studied the pyramid of energy. It shows what? Energy flow at each trophic level. It is always going to be upright as energy decreases with each transfer, right? So that is why always it is going to be like this only. It is going to be getting less when you go up, right? Most accurate pyramid is considered to be pyramid of energy. Now when you talk about pyramid of number, my dear children, you might be asked to make these pyramids, so you should know about it. For example, pyramid of number means here you are mentioning producers are this many, consumers are this much, and secondary consumers are this much, tertiary consumers are this much. This is pyramid of number. Ma'am, will it be always upright? No, it can be ulta also. For example, think there is only one plant, okay? There is only one plant, and on this one plant you have so many animals feeding on it. You get it? So basically plant is one, number of organism over here is just one, right? But the organisms that are feeding on it are multiple. So basically, am I not getting an inverted pyramid? Yes, I am. Producers are less, but the consumers are going to be more. This is what? Inverted pyramid. So pyramid of number can be upright as well as inverted. Shows the number of individuals at each trophic level can be upright or inverted depending on what the ecosystem is. Example, a large tree supports many herbivores, inverted, as I told you. Please know the exceptions. You can get questions on the basis of that as well. Now, pyramid of biomass is there. What do you mean by pyramid of biomass? Basically, talking about the weight, okay, weight. So over here again, if plant is there, plant is going to be having higher biomass than all the other organisms. So it can be upright. But there are conditions where things are opposite also. For example, aquatic ecosystem. I told about phytoplanktons. Phytoplanktons are the small organisms which are there. Okay, so basically their biomass is going to be less. What about zooplanktons? A bit more. What about small fishes? Obviously more. What about large fishes? Obviously more than that. So again you get what? Inverted pyramid. So inverted pyramid of biomass is something that is very common in what? In aquatic ecosystem. In aquatic ecosystem, this is going to be very, very common. So please know the exceptions of this, and I told you pyramid of energy do not have any exceptions. Now, the last part of this particular class is limitations of pyramids. What is the limitation of ecological pyramids? And again, this is important. They do not consider species at multiple trophic levels. For example, I can eat a plant. I can also eat an animal. I can be at several levels. If I am an omnivore, I am a non-vegetarian, then what happens basically, I can be in different levels out there, right? So they do not consider species at multiple trophic levels over here. They consider, okay, rabbit is in this level, that's all. You get it? So that is one big problem. Assume a simple food chain ignoring a complex food web. So it's not like, for example, there is a rabbit and there is a deer and I am the tiger. I'm not just going to say, according to the food chain, I'll go and I'll eat only the rabbit. Is it how it works? No. I can eat the deer also, right? So there are multiple things ongoing. There are multiple food chains. That means there is food web out there and we are ignoring that. Next thing, do not include decomposers or saprophytes even though they play a crucial role. So in any of these things, did you ever see decomposers out there? And that is a very big loss, right? Because decomposers plays the major role. How would you replenish the energy if at all decomposers are not there? And that is not being considered. So basically you have 3 limitations of ecological pyramids. 1, do not consider organism at multiple trophic levels. Second, they consider only simple food chain, that is not possible. And the third one, they do not include decomposers. Works. These are the things that you need to keep in your mind. And with that, we end up today's revision video. I hope this had helped you. Definitely let me know if at all you have any doubts. Put it down in the comment section. And definitely let me know if at all it really worked well for you. If it worked well, then probably we can think of making more videos like that. Yes? Or do you want it more towards examination? Whatever your choice is, put it down in the comment section. Wishing you all the best. Please take care of yourselves. Bye-bye. And do not forget to hit the subscribe button. Okay? Bye.